Naruto and Naruto Shipudden, one of the biggest anime franchises of all time. And I just want to look at which one is better between the two, the old or the new, old school or new school, young Naruto or old Naruto. Taking a look at the music of both series, I gotta say, the original Naruto just kind of has to win out on this one, just because the music of the original Naruto, as was so good, and yet it was so diverse at the same time. If you needed a song for happiness, you got it. If you needed a song for sadness, you got it. You needed a song to be badass, you got that. You needed a song just for an ordinary day, you had that. And the thing is, they were all quality songs too. They weren't just like makeshift songs that people just needed to make just to fill a certain scene. You could a certain scene. You could tell they actually put in effort. Whereas in Naruto Shippuden, the songs are still good. Maybe I wouldn't say they're as good as the original Naruto, but they're more or less all have the same convey the same emotion. I mean, they're both very emotional. Don't get me wrong, but like the Naruto Shippuden is just all pretty much all of them is all serious, and you don't really get that. You don't really get that diversity that you look at with the original Naruto. A good example of that, if you look at Naruto, look at Strong and Strike, and then look at I forgot the name of the song, but like it was the song Naruto used when I think he beat Kiba. They sound so different, but yet they both work so well within the fights. So that's what I'm saying. I just think the original Naruto had a better soundtrack because not only was it good, it was diverse. So you could get a lot of different things out of it. Whereas the Shippuden was good too, but it wasn't. It was nowhere near as diverse. It wasn't. You could literally not have a certain song from that soundtrack, and another song could be able to just fill it perfectly because they all convey the same emotion. Whereas with Naruto, it's not like that. Next, we're gonna take a look at the plot of both the series, and in the original Naruto, the plot was kind of straightforward. You kind of knew what all the events were leading up to. You knew Naruto was going to become Hokage. You knew Sasuke was gonna at least fight Itachi. You knew Rock Lee was gonna become a good ninja. You knew Neji would try to overcome the whole Hyuga curse. Hinata would be able to stand by Naruto's side. Uh, Sakura would be able to stand by Sasuke's side. You knew these characters had goals were the driving force of the plot, and and that was when the Naruto plot was the strongest. Especially when all their goals kind of divulged into each other. For example, the Sasuke retrieval arc. It was basically we take five of our guys, five of the main characters, put them against five of the main villain's henchmen, and kind of like all these feelings they have of their anxieties of what it means to be a ninja. Um, all these things are tested in this death environment because they could have legitimately died. And mind you, they weren't even fighting 5 on 5. They were stopping fighting 1 on 1s with these um basically like Jonin level ninjas. So um I I think the plot in Naruto was better. Because when you get by the time you get to Shippuden, you have it's basically just you have this big group, the Akatsuki, who again the Akatsuki are great villains. Don't get me wrong, but you basically just have the Akatsuki, and it's like all right, they're going after Jinchurikis, which you don't even get to see except for Naruto, Killaby, and Utaka, and Utaka was like filler, so that doesn't count. So you really don't even get to see the Akatsuki do all that, and it's basically okay. So now it's just Naruto um having to fight against these guys while everyone else is kind of set to the back burner. And the big problem I have with Shippuden isn't even that. It's the fact that um everyone all the villains were just using each other, which is dumb. Because like there's only some because that just makes them look dumb. Um Pain slash Nagato was being used by Obito. Obito was being used by Madara. Madara was being used by Black Zetsu, and he was being used by Kaguya. Granted, that was the whole point of Black Zetsu's existence, but it was just like all these villains that we were hyped up to really fair as villains, they're incompetent because they don't even realize they're being used by other people. And honest to God, it was honestly fine up until Madara. The whole Kaguya thing was dumb. And another thing we gotta look at is the characters. Now, you got Naruto, the Jinchuriki. You got Sasuke, the emo. You got Sakura, the fangirl. Rock Lee, the hard worker. Neji, the smartass. You had a bunch of different characters, and they were all like different, unique in their own way. I just repeated myself. Don't that didn't happen. Anyway, and they all brought different things to the table. Oh my goodness, I keep doing it. Damn it. But then in Naruto Shippuden, like you had a lot of useless ass characters that were not memorable for dog shit. And this is something that Naruto didn't struggle with because I could probably name you a lot more characters in Naruto than I could in Naruto Shippuden. Because even the characters in Naruto that didn't have that much screen time had a decent bearing on the plot. For example, the Sound Ninja that infiltrated, like not infiltrated, that were in the tuning exams just to piss off Sasuke and shit. If they didn't do what they did, Sasuke probably wouldn't have known about Orochimaru, the curse mark. Um, Sakura wouldn't have gained a backbone. None of that stuff would have happened. And mind you, they're useless ass characters that died a couple episodes later, but they had such a bearing on the plot. Naruto Shippuden, it's not that way. Like, who is anyone really care about like Kamui and or whatever the other guy's name is? If you don't know who the hell I'm talking about, and if I got their names wrong because they're that irrelevant, I'm talking about the mofo's that Killer B was with during his crowd, like his two students or whatever. No one cares about them. No one cares about the girl the Tsuchikage was with, and the big fat guy with the nose. Again, I'm talking about the village of the earth or whatever called them. Like these are all I should not feel these ways about these characters, but I just do because they're completely irrelevant. They have no one. They could literally not be there, and the story would progress as normal. And that's a problem that I think Naruto Shippuden had. Well, I wouldn't want to say Naruto didn't have it. It wasn't this rampant. But yeah. Next thing we're gonna compare is the fights. The pow 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 pow. I think the fights actually both series were kind of equal, but they were equal for different reasons. In Naruto, they were more strategic, and because they were actually ninja, and not just fucking people with weird ass powers, not like freaking magicians and shit. I know they're not magicians, but I just can't think of a word to describe them because they're not ninja. They're not shinobi. The shinobi world's it's gone now. It's just freaks, monsters. Anyway, but that's beside the point. That's another discussion for another day. Aliens. Okay, now that was my last one. That's moving on. But the fights they were equal for different reasons. Like in Naruto, it was more strategic. It was more about stealth, strategy. When to hit your opponent. Chakra was actually a thing that was actually a limited resource that you couldn't just abuse the shit out of. You had to watch the way you conducted yourself in battle. Whereas nowadays, people just like get meteors from the sky, can sprout up trees, can use nature against their opponents, can mind control people. Like it's just all these fights, and while they are grand, and don't get me wrong, they're not bad fights, but like they just if you don't do it in moderation, then it kind of gets ridiculous and out of hand. For example, Madara manhandled an entire was manhandling an entire army by himself without using any jutsu. Like what? Okay, it's not really grand, but that's just again what? That's just ridiculous. he he brought a meteor from the sky, two meteors in fact, which would have basically instantly killed everyone if the Tsuchigage wasn't there. Um, Susanoo, I feel like that's ridiculous. And what was the point of that? Giving them more exoskeleton, giving the Uchiha more exoskeleton. Why? The fucking tailed beast shit. Like what? Like I understand why they implemented that, and the only reason they implemented that was to counteract the whole Sharingan thing. The Sharingan is a freaking enigma of its own. All right, freaking you can genjutsu people. You can cause flames that never end, Matarasu. You can bring out giant exoskeleton. It's just like, okay, aren't these supposed to be eyes? Like, what? What? You know, back in the old days of Naruto, you would see like maybe a fraction of that, and like it will hype that up. Like the way Gara they hyped up Gara in the tuning exams. I was honestly thinking to myself, who is gonna beat this guy? You know, who could possibly beat this guy? Like he has sand that follows him everywhere. Sand's hard and shit. I honestly thought Gara was OP as fuck. And then we moved on to Naruto Shippuden, and we realized that the whole sand thing doesn't mean dog shit in the whole um in the whole span of things. And it's just like, why do you need to get this OP? Like, come on, like it's ridiculous. And um, Kekkei, like we already touched upon this with the Sharingan, the Rinnegan too. Like what? The Rinnegan's OP as fuck. Like it's too OP. Fucking you can let's look at all the things you can do with the Rinnegan, right? You can push and pull at will. You can revive the dead. You can absorb ninjutsu. You can summon animals that never die unless you get killed. You can create black holes, for God's sakes. And you can turn yourself into ammunition. Like what? Like tell me if you told me that when you first started watching Naruto, these are the type of fights you would have envisioned in the later seasons, then you're lying. You're a liar. You're a flat out liar. Because I can assure you that's not the case. And it's just like, bro, calm down, man. Calm down. So, so in summation, to wrap this all up, Naruto fights in the beginning less grand, more strategic. I'd probably say they're even more. I wouldn't say they're more emotional now. I'd give that to Shippuden. So yeah, Shippuden, they're more grand, more emotional, and they still had some sense of strategy. Like Naruto versus Pain fight was hands down my favorite Shippuden fight. Hell, it probably would have been my favorite fight overall if you know if it didn't have the whole Naruto turn into a tailed beast and just going ape shit. If that part wasn't there, then that probably would have been my favorite fight of the entire Naruto series. So yeah, those are my opinion on the fights. They were good throughout, but they were good for different reasons. Now, this is the last part of the video, and this is probably the most important part of comparing just how of contrasting just how different these two series really are. Now, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. And leave a comment down of what you agree or disagree with. Seriously, thank you if you watched this far, because I know not a lot of you will. The main difference between Naruto and Naruto Shippuden that's undisputed is the simple fact that Neji was right. And for those of you that know what that don't know what that means, in Naruto's fight against Neji, Neji basically said that there are people that are destined to become successful in the world. And Naruto said that doesn't really matter where you come from, what your background is, and that you determine your own destiny. Which was all well and good until Naruto Shippuden came along. And then it was established that Naruto is a child of prophecy. Naruto is the son of the fourth Hokage. Naruto is the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Past Children, or at least, well, one of his child. So when you look at all these things, the whole talent beats hard, hard work beats talent thing, really gets loses meaning because it it, it it doesn't apply to Naruto anymore, and he's the main character of this show. So he's who we're gonna be. He's the eyes that we're gonna be seeing most of the time. The principle of the original show was that hard work beats talent, and it just that principle was destroyed and like left to the left to the back burner, and that's probably the reason why a lot of people don't like this show as much as the original Naruto, because they can't relate to this Naruto anymore. This Naruto basically had all the tools from the beginning, and if honestly and really, if you think about it, he should have been even stronger given all the tools that he had at the beginning of the series when we saw him, because he was no longer the loser that had something to prove to everyone. He was, as the show said,